I've always been a huge fan of the World Cup. You know, nations playing against each other. Belgium versus France, Brazil versus Germany. I've always preferred that over actual normal teams, like in football as well. Barcelona versus Manchester United. I've always preferred seeing the nations over watching those clubs compete against each other. And in Rocket League, it would be the same. You know, we haven't really had any nations play against each other in a quality event yet. When I say quality, I mean, you know, it's like a major in Rocket League. It's a high price pool event, proper format, everything. But recently, we had the announcement of the FIFAe World Cup. In this announcement, they mentioned 16 teams are going to be in this event. We're going to invite these nations, and I quote, the nations are selected based on factors such as player base and previous performances of players from the respective countries. And then yeah, after a while we get to see some of the nations that get chosen. Important to note as well before I get to the nations that got chosen that when these invitations get sent out, they can also be declined by the nations. These invitations get sent out, from what I hear, to the football associations of that nation. So they can be declined, they can be ignored, whatever it is. So we shouldn't assume that every one of these are being accepted. You know, they mention in this announcement for the FIFA World Cup that these FAs are the ones that are responsible for their own teams. Which is probably a problem because you know you can just invite the United States and you know the United States FA can just say okay I'm gonna choose these three players to represent my nation, my nephew, my cousin, my father. You know, they make them completely responsible for their team and whether they set up their own qualification system or not. Completely up to the FA of the respective nation. So that in a whole is already a problem, right? But yeah, let's just take into account as well, because I'm going to mention that some of the teams chosen that you know the FAs can decline their invitation, right? So the nations chosen, they were all pretty normal at first. You know, you get Saudi Arabia, Australia, Morocco, South Africa, the USA, Argentina. Argentina, you know, I would have argued that maybe a different country could have gone in instead of them, maybe. But I have no real issue with Argentina being there, so no complaints really. Brazil, Belgium, England, France, Germany, Netherlands, Spain, Chile, all good so far. And then the next two, they're a bit of a different case, and they're Turkey and Portugal. Now Portugal, you know, they're not that's not too bad. You can kind of see, you know, how they could somehow squeeze in there, even though me and you know everyone really would would put a different country. So then Portugal, they're not too far away that you know you can imagine a couple FAs declining their invitations and they didn't know who to go with and they said maybe Portugal and maybe they rated them above maybe in Italy or Denmark, even though I wouldn't have. You can kind of see why they would. You know, they're close enough to the point where you can kind of imagine maybe they just valued the fact that Portugal have a player like a Chronic who would be better than any of the players on the Italy side or the Denmark side, even though you probably I would say that the all three players combined would end up being worse than let's say an Italy and a Denmark who all have RLCS players from this season, right? In this RLCS top 16 main event, and huge player bases as well. You look at Italy for that as well. Giant country has had quite a presence in the past as well. With Cooksir in the past, so Italy that has that player base as well. When you look at that requirement, you know they mentioned previous performances of players and player base. So you know you expect that to be the relevant uh, to be taken into account, and you would have assumed that Italy maybe could have been in there, but maybe they declined the invitation, as I said. So Portugal, slight issue, but maybe you can kind of imagine how they ended up there. But then Turkey, whole new problem, whole new problem. Because let me put this into perspective, right? So people were expecting Canada, Japan, to be chosen, right? And they weren't. Turkey are not even close to being a country that should be chosen even within Europe, not including all these other regions. Considering that it's the World Cup, right? You also assume that that would be one of the requirements. Is we want to get countries from here, there, there, there. You look at South Africa, and you would assume that, oh right, that they clearly are trying to get these African teams. They've also got Morocco, so that's two African teams. Morocco, though, they kind of warrant it without. They just warrant it regardless because of their results as well. But South Africa don't have the greatest results, so you kind of based on that, you would assume that we're trying to be including teams from all around the world here, or nations rather. But with Turkey, even within Europe, let me just list a couple countries, right, in Europe that would be above Turkey, right? Other than Italy and Denmark, it would be Wales, Austria, Ireland, Scotland, Norway, Sweden, Czechia, Switzerland, Poland, Finland, Hungary. Now there might be a few as well, a few more, but maybe they're smaller countries, so they don't quite have the player base in this discussion to make them obviously more worthy than Turkey. But all those nations I just listed all had either players in the main event of RLCS or they had players close, at least top 48, let's say. But most go up to one or two results in the top 24, that kind of stuff. And all these nations are more worthy than Turkey because Turkey's most notable players, and it's a massive drop off after this guy, by the way, is Lorley. And Lorley, the last time he competed, where he was able to make it top 24, top 36, or whatever it is, top 38, I'm not sure, was May last year. That's the last time he competed. That's a long time ago. So all these nations that have continued to compete are automatically they're more worthy and they have more players as well. So they have that depth within the country where they can field a more solid lineup than a Turkey. To put it into perspective as well, Turkey would be in the same tier of worthiness as Luxembourg. Luxembourg, they have a player called Loris Raptor who has made top 48 this season. But they don't quite have the player base. They don't have the depth as Turkey does. Probably, I would assume Turkey would win if they did play Luxembourg. But yeah, just trying to put them in the same bracket, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. They're very similar in worthiness. So I don't know how this happened because you can't. I don't think you got declined 10 million times as well, and I would like to add as well that if let's say Singapore, they only have two-thirds of the Singapore roster that competed in IWO, so because there they had Maxiu, Bollaries, LCT, I believe. And let's say only two-thirds of those are allowed to actually represent Singapore, because I'm not actually sure where all of them are from, and whether they're actual residents, and blah 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 blah. Their third is not going to be too bad, and if you can't get Singapore, is there not another nation from Asia, maybe like an Indonesia that can squeeze in, a Malaysia that could squeeze in? Like they don't have to be the best team in the world, but at least make it feel like a World Cup. Get that team from Asia, other than Saudi Arabia. In Rocket League terms, we call it Asia Pacific, right? We don't just want to have just Saudi Arabia. We want a country like Japan also to really add to that experience of the World Cup. So maybe I'm asking a bit much, asking for more than one Asian country, but Africa got two. So I feel like it would only make sense that Asia would get two as well, but I guess not. I guess not. But yeah, those are some of my concerns with this FIFA E World Cup. But I still think it's going to be a really fun event. I just wish we had better representation, and a team like Turkey shouldn't be there. Maybe the FIFA E World Cup should be set up to the point where the football associations don't need to be completely responsible for everything that happens, because it has also resulted in the fact that we get two teams in that, in my opinion, shouldn't be here. Portugal, as I've already said, isn't the biggest issue, but Turkey is unacceptable. I'll put it that way. There's just so many countries that would go ahead of them. You even got the tweet from JNaps and Squishy the other day saying that they were ready to play together. Squishy was going to unretire just to play this event. It would have been really really fun to see them competing for Canada, which has been a great nation in Rocket League. I don't know if their invitation was declined or not, but yeah, it was just such a shame to see to not see, you know, the biggest and most relevant countries in Rocket League all competing in the same event. But yeah, it is what it is. Still gonna be fun. FIFA World Cup. It's gonna be a while after World Championship that's going to start. So it'll be a little while. I might make a video about the rosters that I expect to come to represent each respective nation. But yeah, that's for another time. I'll see you later.